Well, hi everyone. Welcome to BERNINA Canada Live on Facebook. My name's Adrienne and I hope you're having a great day today. We certainly are having a great day here. We got one of my favorite topics. I finally managed to squeeze it in. So I hope everybody is enjoying the day and is ready for some really good and exciting information. I'm just going to check my feed and see if everybody's joining in, and then we'll do a little intro and we'll get started. All right.
Where is your mic?
Mic fell. Oh, there it is. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit better now. Okay. Just going to check in here. Great. All right. We're ready to go. Hi, Kathy. We're ready to go. So hemstitching is a really fascinating topic. It's also known as heirloom sewing, or sometimes Madeira stitching. It's got a couple names. And the reason we love it so much in Bernina land is because before Bernina, the Gagauff family had started Bernina, and they had designed a hemstitch machine. And previously hemstitching was all done by hand. It was a very laborious process, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. And so at Bernina, we love to look back at the history of our company, but also look forward to the new things that we're doing. And so this topic makes a history and sewing nerd, such as myself, super excited because we get to hit all those targets: history, stitching, and looking forward to. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you some examples from my collection of hand hem stitching. So here we go. Hey Linda, hey Janet, hey Lori. Okay, good. You've joined Kathy, so we're ready to go. All right, so hopefully everybody can hear me well. And I just wanted to show you a couple of examples of some hem stitching from my personal collection. So this is an example of hand hem stitching, and hopefully Sarah can see that. Sorry about the lighting, but you can see that there's a big gap here in the fibers, and the way this was created was that the sewist, probably a woman, this is probably my great-great-grandmother's handiwork, she would have removed these threads, and then by hand needle she would have gathered these other fibers together. Similarly here, these fibers would have been removed, and then as you do the hand stitching, you create this blanket or ladder here. So it's a very time-consuming process, and this example here is probably over 80 or 90 years old, and it's cut up because we made a memory pillow out of some of the soiled linens. But that was really fun to use that. So that's how labor intensive it is. I'm going to show you, this is another example. So again, you can see the decorative elements here and here and here. And then also this was used to finish the edge. This edge here, maybe Sarah can see it, this edge here is folded over and actually secured in the back and done the hem stitching at the same time. There's a really good video on this process that I will put on the Pinterest page. Our Pinterest page for hem stitching is actually already there, but I'll add this video from this nice lady named Sarah. I'll show you how this is done, and I'll show you a bit how this is done today in machine. So this would have all been done by hand, and you can see how nice and even it is, so a very skilled needle worker did this. And then in 1893, the Gagauffs came out with their hem stitching machine, and this is an example of machine hem stitching. So it's much tinier, it's very precise, and it's very regular. And you can imagine that this could have been done, probably this little piece could have been done in well under an hour. So you can imagine how excited people were when the hem stitch machine came out, and this tedious work became much easier to do. Just a revolution really in the sewing world. The Gagauff machine became synonymous with hem stitching to the point where you didn't even say you were going to hem stitch something, you were going to Gagauff it. and it actually removed or separated the fibers and then allowed for the stitching to happen. So that was the first automated process of that. Nowadays, when we talk about hem stitching, we actually do this with by using a specialized needle. So here's another example of one I did recently. And what you need to accomplish this is a wing needle or a hem stitch needle. This is the same type of needle, but notice here it's labeled Hemstitch. Hey Doris, hey Linda. And over here they call it wing needle. Both are correct. They're kind of interchangeable. Right now on the market, there's two common sizes of these needles, 100 and 120. This is a Schmetz branded needle. We also have BERNINA branded needles, and I've seen some other brands out there as well. So let me show you the characteristics of this needle. So it looks like a regular needle, but it's got these really wide wings on the side. I think you can probably see that, right, Sarah? The wings here. And sometimes we refer to them as blades, but they are not sharp at all. They're just dull little wings, and they work to push the fibers apart. So I'm actually pushing the needle into this fabric here, and all it does is sort of create a hole by pushing the fibers apart. It doesn't cut the fabric, it doesn't really damage the fabric, it just creates a little hole by pushing the fibers apart. So this needle works really well on fabrics that have a looser weave. So this is a cotton towel here, or this is I think a batiste linen napkin made of cotton. So it works really well on natural fibers with a looser weave. So a cotton batik would be pretty hard to do this technique. It would be very hard to push those fibers apart on such a densely woven fabric. Hi everyone, we're talking hem stitching today, or heirloom sewing. All right, so you really just need this needle, specialized needle, to make hem stitching or heirloom stitching work for you. It will work on any machine. You just install it flat to the back. I've had hem stitch needles in my kit for ages, and I just haven't used it for a long time. So you just install it flat to the back. Sorry about that, Sarah. Make sure it's all the way up to the top. And I played with the two different sizes, and they made very similar holes. Maybe this is the larger size, so the hole is just a little bit larger on this one. So you'll notice I'm threading the needle by hand. You cannot use your automatic needle threader with this large needle. It's just too wide. It will damage your threader. So please remember just to thread it by hand. All right. Another consideration for hem stitching is you're going to use decorative stitches. So you're going to want to choose a foot that has that channel for decorative stitching on the back. We've talked about this before, but see how it's got the nice wide channel. So this is number 20C. Actually, I'm going to switch to a clear foot because that'll be even easier for me. I'm going to use this one. This is number 39. Same thing, it's got the channel in the back and the red markings. So I'm going to switch to 39 because I haven't used that on a video for quite some time. So that's the main consideration, some of the main considerations for hem stitching. You're also going to want to consider your threads. Traditionally, this was done with cotton or silk threads, something very fine. Today I'm using isocord thread. This is an embroidery thread, but this green sample here is actually done with wonderful 50 weight confetti, I believe. It's also a synthetic. It's very shiny and beautiful. So you don't have to stick with the traditional elements for this technique. In fact, I encourage trying something else. So we talked about fabric, we talked about the needle, we talked about the foot. Oh, I should attach it correctly. Funny. There we go. And we talked about threads. So the other thing I would do is I would set up your machine so that we don't damage this wing needle. That usually is an expensive needle, around $10 to $12, so we want to be careful. And more importantly, I don't want to damage my sewing machine. It just came back from the tech department, so I want to make sure it works really well. So let's take a look here. The opening of my machine is a 9mm opening. So I'm going to go to the screen, Sarah, and I'm just going to use the security program on the screen. All right. So on your machine, you should have a button that looks sort of like this one, where it's showing the plate and the needle. I'm going to select that. That's called our security program. And over here, I'm going to let the machine know that I am indeed using the 9mm plate, but I've switched to a wing needle, and there's the wing needle right there. And you'll notice beside, there's actually another type of wing needle. It's called the double wing needle, because it's got a wing needle and a single needle as well. I don't have one of those in my kit. They're kind of cool too, but you can't do as many decorative stitches because this is quite wide. So now that I've set up my machine, that's okay. I'm going to stay on the screen for a little bit. You would like to select a stitch that would be great for hem stitching, which is what we're doing today. We are doing the awesome technique of hem stitching. So you want to select a stitch where the needle is going to penetrate the thread in the same point multiple times. So an example of this would be triple zigzag. So the way that this stitch works is it goes zig, 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 zag, 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 zig, zig, zig. The more times that wing needle has an opportunity to push the fibers apart in the same pinpointed hole, the larger the hole will get, and the more opportunity for the stitch to hold it in place. So it looks best when you use a double, triple stitch type thing. Another popular one is honeycomb, because we kind of go in and out all the different holes over and over again. So stitch selection is pretty important. I'm going to show you what a bunch of them look like today and what we're looking for and not looking for in a stitch. So let's look at honeycomb since it's on the screen. I'm going to go down to the machine again. Right now I'm just using the Isacord, Kathy, because it's cheap and plentiful, and it comes in a lot of colors, and I can show you a nice contrasting color. This is just a cotton Kona. So it's a medium tight weave. I've sprayed it with a bit of spray starch. That's this product, anything like that. Can you see that one, Sarah? And I've put a little bit of stabilizer behind just for this application. You wouldn't always need a stabilizer. I just chose a very lightweight, soft stabilizer. This is OESD, what did I choose again? I chose Ultra Clean and Tear. It tears away very easily. I like it. All right, so I know that my stitch will not go too big and hit my foot or hit my plate. So I'll show you what this looks like. I'm going to do it in slow motion so you can see something. So you'll notice that the blade just went in that hole the second time. So it goes in several of the holes, particularly in the middle of the stitch, multiple times. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. I'm not going to use my automatic thread cutter today. I'm just chicken. I think sometimes it might hit that wing needle, and I just can't afford to have my machine back in the tech department. Okay, so here's what it looks like. Let me hold it up so Sarah can maybe see the light. Can you see the light coming through? Isn't that cool? So the wings of the needle push those cotton fibers apart, and then the thread is securing that fiber being pulled into the new position. That's why it looks even better if you go into the same hole with the thread multiple times. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So it looks really cool. You could use a matching thread, and then the holes are much more apparent. I'm using a contrasting thread today so you can see the stitch pattern, but historically you would do kind of a tone on tone look. So let me show you another stitch. I'm gonna select something on the screen. Sarah, if you go to the screen, in the quilting folder on our new machines, there's a lot of nice stitches in there, including blanket stitch. That's a triple blanket stitch. So anything that's bolded usually means that the needle goes in several times. Let's try this one with the cross stitch pattern. Here we go. And again, I'm sewing at a medium speed. Let the machine do the work for me. Isn't this fun, Linda? I just love it. A really good thing to do is to also use your pattern end button. Maybe Sarah can see it above the slide speed control. I want to complete the whole pattern, so I'm going to press pattern end, and it's going to complete the pattern for me. I don't have to guess what the last stitch is. Perfect, and it's stopped. Let's see what this one looks like. It's like Christmas every time. You pull it out and you just don't know exactly what you're going to get in there. And, oh, I like this one too. Check that out. Can you see that one, Sarah? Is it better if I hold it down there? Great. Oh, I like this one. It's very Nightmare Before Christmas, you know, like it looks like it's holding two things together. That's really cool. So definitely you could use this as a decorative element in your garment, in your quilt, in home dec. Lots of great things. Let me show you some other samples I made. So this was on cotton. I'm just going to reach over and show you one I did on. This is a home dec fabric. This is a home decorator fabric. And it looks like linen. It is not linen. It is a cotton polyester blend with big fibers to kind of look like linen. And it works really well too. So don't be afraid of those home dec fabrics. In fact, I bought this fabric because I was trying to find this specific greeny gray color. And actually the original fabric has this really awful gold luster on it, and I just use the back of the fabric. So that's another trick. If you ever buy fabric and you fall out of love of it, then you can just use the back of it. So Linda had a great question. She says, how do you make sure that you do a straight line? And that is a really good question, Linda. So what I did was I drew a line with an air erasable marker, and then I followed the center of it just using the center of my number 39C foot. You could, that's usually the best way to do it. And after you've made the first line, I usually use like the edge of the foot to do the next line, or I could have used my my sewing guide, the one that attaches at the back of the foot. I forgot to grab it. It's over in my little thread locker, but that's okay. And you could do that to space them evenly. Good question, Linda. Today I used some pencil. You can actually see the pencil mark on this one. Maybe I'll show you on the white one. You can see my pencil mark. Just because it was a sample, I just used a pencil to get it started here. And then I could follow down the line. But I wouldn't recommend pencil because it doesn't really wash out, right? Use an appropriate marking, but this was just a sample. So I did some other stitch patterns here too. I really like this one. See how nice the whole of the flower is, because you go in there, I think 12 times each flower. This is like a triple stitch honeycomb, and it really makes a nice effect with the light. There's some cross stitches in our folders. They work really, really well. Anything with an X pattern, that works really, really well too. And these look pretty traditional, these ones. And then I like to choose really graphic ones. See how graphic this looks with the sort of diamond shape? And also with this sort of zigzag shape. I just love these. They go in and out of the hole multiple times, so it really accentuates the separation of the fibers, and you get a lot of opportunity for the thread to catch that and hold them open. So I usually choose really graphic stitches like that, and I'll show you a couple more. Hopefully you can see them. This is another cross stitch one. See how nice and lacy and open that looks? That could look great too. This is a stitch that's on almost every machine I've ever come into contact with ever in my life. So any machine can do a beautiful hem stitch. You just choose the one that you like. And then this is a great one on my new 480, this beautiful scallop, but it's like a ladder stitch but with a scallop. and it's triple stitch, so it goes over it so many times. It makes such a large hole there, and it just holds it just so great. Now, if you did any of these in white thread, they would look really, really heirloom. Really, really elevate the look. I'm doing it in a contrasting thread because I think it looks more modern, and it's certainly easier for you to see on your screens today. So hopefully that will help you. I'm just going to go back to the screen. I'll show you a couple more stitches and what to look for in your stitches here. So remember, Bernina stitches are kind of designed, organized into folders. So I would avoid this floral folder. There's not much here that's going to work. That one's pretty dark. It goes in there several times. That one might work really well. The leaves might work. These are all worth a shot, actually. This one would look really nice. It would look sort of like a cable effect. So these are definitely things to try. Experiment, see if you like them. That's always great. Satin stitch is something I would steer clear of. The stitches just build up too much, and you might actually perforate the fabric because the stitches are too close together. So I kind of stay away from the satin stitches. This is historically where we put our cross stitches, and these turn out amazing. Lots and lots of great options here. Very historical feel. So if you're trying to do an heirloom piece, you'll get really great results with those. Another one that's good is this 701. These are kind of the graphic stitches. So there's that sort of hexagon one that I really enjoyed. There's the one that's kind of the stepping stones, looks really good. This one looks really good too. And remember, you can make your stitches longer and wider. Now I can't go past 7 millimeters because that's the max. Then the needle's going to hit the side. The machine did that for me. So there you go. Let me look up the scallop for you. The scallop is in these new stitches on the 5 and 4 series, and I saw that scallop, here it is, 736. But if you have a 7, and very similar ones like this look great. Let's stitch that one out. I'll show you how great this looks. It's really easy to do. Here we go. I would stay at a medium speed. These still do take a relatively long period of time to stitch out because you're doing that decorative stitch, that triple stitch going back and forth multiple times. So there's that sort of wave pattern. That looks great too. So check out all those different stitches. Yeah. So the scallop was number 736 on my 480. It's not on every machine, but you guys will have great stitches on your machines as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you have a stitch that you like, but it's not sort of triple, it's only single stitch, you can change it to a triple stitch. If you have a 590 or a 570, we have an automatic button to do that right in the eye feature. Or if you have a higher level machine like a 790, 880, I think 780 might have it. If you have Stitch Designer on your machine, you can convert single stitches into triple stitches just with the click of a button. So that's the main way of how you do hem stitching. This was a cotton towel that I just did. I had embroidered this for my dad, and I thought it needed a little bit more of a design on it. So Linda, I drew one line here and added the stitches, and then I thought it needed another line, so I just used the edge of my foot and ran it along here and did the next stitch. And then I thought it looked so nice I needed to do one more row. I'm one of those people that change my plan as I go. So I did another stitch there. I used Wonderfill on the top, and I just used, I'll show you the back. I just used a cotton Aurifil on the back, and here's that tearaway stabilizer. It's mostly torn away, but this is like a wood pulp fiber, and this will come out with washing. It will be gone in the next wash or so. If I was really clever, I would have remembered to bring some water-soluble stabilizer from work. That would have been smart. And I could have used that. That would have really helped. Then it would just come out in the first wash, or I could quickly wash this in the sink and dry it, and it'll be ready to present to my dad. The other thing I wanted to say is, even if you use stabilizer like this one, here's my, ooh, you won't see on that. This is easier. So here's my papery stabilizer and here's my fabric. I found that because you're going back and forth with this decorative stitch so many times, the fabric really wants to pucker. It really does. So I used a little bit of spray based to secure the fabric to the stabilizer, and that really helped to keep it in place, and it didn't want to gather quite as much. I should have kept my first sample where I just laid it on top of the stabilizer. It didn't look as good. This looks really nice. I really enjoy that. Sandy, how do you make the triple stitches on the 570? Okay, Sarah, can you go to the screen? So Sandy, you just select a stitch, and then you would go to the I button for information. And I don't have it on my screen, but if you have a 570, here in the information screen, you'll see triple stitch. It's usually right here. And if you just click on that, it'll convert that to triple stitch. When you click it, have a little sip of tea, because it takes 2 seconds for it to calculate this. So don't panic. If it doesn't do anything, it takes a second to calculate it. Okay? So check that out, Sandy. That's great. So I think, going back to the sewing machine, Sarah, oh, that's not all I wanted to say about hem stitching. So I've just been showing you decorative stitching, but really this was originally designed to finish a hem. So that's what I was doing the last 2 days. Was I was making a nice Ogden cami by True Bias, and this is linen. This is actually a Ramie linen blend. So a really cool crisp fabric, and you can see I used stitch 711. That's the star shape. I matched my thread pretty well there, so it might be hard for you to see. Oh no, you can see it pretty well. And what I did was, this is right on the hem allowance. So what I did was I pressed this really well with starch and folded up my hem. And then I did my stitching right here. So you can see my stitching. Here's my seam allowance here. And now all I have to do is go back and trim away my seam allowance. And I've basically hemmed and done a decorative stitch all at once. Yes! 2 things at once makes me look so great. So Lori, what I did for this one was I used, can you zoom out just a little bit? For this one, I didn't want to use any stabilizer, so I used just the starch, and I folded the hem up and pressed it in place, and then I starched on the front and I starched on the back. I starched it twice. And this is such a crisp fabric that it kept I didn't need anything to glue the hem down. And I just stitched it from the top, just like this, knowing that I had put enough seam allowance that I would cover it. On the other fabric, my sample fabric, I used a little bit of starch to starch the fabric and make it crisp, because it was kind of a linen-y cotton blend and didn't look so good. And then I used a bit of Perfect Baste, or you could use 505, or you could use embroidery, what's that called? A temporary embroidery adhesive to connect the fabric to the stabilizer. I wouldn't spray 505 on a water-soluble stabilizer, right? I'd only do it on a paper-based one, because I don't know how the chemicals are going to work. Another stabilizer idea that would have worked really well would have been to use the sticky back water-soluble stabilizer, because then I have the benefit of the sticky, and then at the end I can cut the rest of it away, and whatever doesn't get removed would wash away. Does that help, Linda? Perfect. Oh, Lori, yeah, good. Okay, so that helped Lori. Good stuff. So yeah, you can definitely do a hem like that. And if you want to take it even farther, you can do a beautiful scalloped hem like this one. I'll show you here on the edge. This is a beautiful sample. So here the exact same thing has been done with the hem, but a line would have been drawn here. So that a line would have been drawn up here, sorry Sarah, that would, so you know exactly where the stitch is going to be. And look at the back, see where the extra fabric is? So the seam allowance, the hem allowance, excuse me, would have been pressed up here. The line would have been drawn on the front, and then you would have stitched along. And then at the very end, you would come back and cut away the extra fabric in the seam allowance, in the hem allowance. Now this example is so perfect that I suspect it may have been done in embroidery because the stitching is flawless. But it could have been, you can do the same thing using a sewing machine. And it's just a gorgeous heirloom effect. And you can draw a scallop any way you want. Maybe Sarah can see this here too. So you can see on the neckline they did the same thing. And the extra fabric is on the back. Isn't that great? I think it's gorgeous, yeah. Yeah. And they did it on the hem as well, or the sleeve hem as well, treated the exact same way. Hopefully you can see that there. So it's treated exactly the same way. Beautiful heirloom details that make your garments really stand out compared to other ones. This is the Ogden cami, so if you're interested, this is the pattern that I used. It's called the Ogden cami. It's by an independent pattern company called True Bias. And they recently expanded their sizes. They used to do only 0 to 18, and now they do 0 to 30. So they can fit anybody. All right, any other questions about hem stitching while I switch over to Spanish hem stitching? Olé! We're getting very excited now. Yeah, Linda, I love Easy On. You can get it everywhere, and it's a great spray starch, and you just need a little, it goes a long way. It's great. Okay, so Spanish hem stitching is slightly different than what we call hem stitching. So Spanish hem stitching, you're going to use 2 pieces of fabric with a finished edge. I'm showing you a sample right here. Hopefully the glare doesn't get you, Sarah. This is some shiny ribbon joined together using the Spanish hem stitch technique I'm going to show you right now. And the reason we used ribbon is because it's already finished, and all you do is just put this whole table runner was put together with a roll of ribbon. I'm going to show you what it looks like at the end. So all different rows, 5 rows of ribbon. These are about 2.5, 3 inches wide, and then just finished off at the end here, covered over to make a beautiful table runner. This is something you could do in a Saturday. This is not the longest project in the world, but this has been around BERNINA Canada forever. It's a little heirloom piece that we love, love, love so much because it's so easy to do and so effective. So let me show you how to do this. We're going to remove our twin needle. Sorry, this is a wing needle. Ooh. Put my wing needle away and just put in a regular needle. So now we're doing the technique called Spanish hem stitching. Some people may know this as traditionally known as faggoting, but we call this Spanish hem stitch now, and it uses our BERNINA Spanish hem stitch attachment, pardon me, Sarah, number 47. So if you have the BERNINA Big Book of Feet, you could look up Spanish hem stitch, and it'll show you a bit how this is done. Also, if you have purchased the BERNINA Spanish hem stitch attachment number 47, it comes with a little booklet that has some of the settings in it. So hang on to those little booklets. They're really useful. So I'm just using a regular needle for this technique, and I'll show you what number 47 looks like. So when you buy number 47, you get this doodad, and you get a bunch of other spacers. So what you've got is 2 spacers here for 9mm machines and 2 smaller spacers here for 5.5mm machines. And that's literally what this does, is these are just spacers, I'll show you how they work. You just, my hand's always in the way. They just clip on the bottom here. Oh my gosh. There you go. Right, so you can trade out the spacers and you just put them on. They just slide on like that. And then you'll notice it's got a hole and a little mounting bracket, and it just slides over the two holes in the base of your machine. And it's quite secure there, but it also comes with a little screw and screwdriver, and I always keep my screw in a little piece of cardboard. This is the piece of cardboard it came with, and I just cut out the piece of cardboard out of the box, and that way I don't lose my screws. The kids know I have a lot of screws loose, so I gotta keep a tab on them, you know. All right, and just tighten it to the base of the machine. That's the setup for this. So the difference here is you've got two 9mm spacers. One of them is a little bit wider than the other. One is a little bit more narrow, and similarly for the 5.5mm spacers. Perfect. They are just a little bit smaller. Okay, and then the next thing you need is a foot, and this works with foot number 20C. Here we go. So check out what happens when I put 20C on. Oh, I should have put the foot on first, huh? I'm at a bad angle. Oh, Lord. Sorry, I can't see from here. I'm just having a day. It's okay. I'm going to take this off and practice, because you know what practice does? It makes me perfect. I'm going to put this one back on. All right, put the foot on. Yeah. Put the attachment on. It kind of snaps in place here too, so it's very easy to attach. So easy I can do it multiple times in one video. You're welcome. All right, so do you see how when I put the foot down, it just sort of straddles the spacer here? And if you were using the smaller spacer, you would use foot number 20. This wouldn't work so well in here. Well, it would. I guess you could use it here. It just would keep the pieces not so far apart. Oh, if only I made English. If only I knew English. Hey, how's it going, Cheryl and Allie? Good to see you. We're just doing some Spanish hemstitching. So I don't have any ribbon today, so I'm going to use a 2.5-inch strip, also known as a jelly roll strip, left over from a project. And I'm just going to use that for my Spanish hemstitch. So you see what happens here is the little spacer holds these accurately a certain distance apart. And I'm going to just lower my foot so you can see that, right? So they're just lined up here at the base of this spacer here. Pretty simple concept, but because this keeps them uniformly in the exact right spot, that's how I get to look so professional in a moment. So now I have to select a stitch. I want to stitch 9mm wide so that it catches both sides of the fabric. And I want it to not have too many needle punctures in the middle of it. So I'm just found one that I really, really like today. I'm going to show you on the screen. It was in folder 600. It was 616 on my machine. There you go. So if you see on the screen, it looks like a chevron-y type thing, a Santa Fe type look. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to be stitching it mostly on air, and just the edges are going to catch on the fabric. And it says 7mm wide. I'm going to make sure it's 9mm wide. Now look what's happening on my screen. It's going red. Why is that? Because I forgot to tell it something. I was using a wing needle before, so I'm going to go back here, tell it I'm using a regular needle, and the red is gone. Now I can max this stitch out to whatever I want. Yep, I can go to 9. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to stitch this out. I'll show you. Just using a regular needle. I'm using white thread so you can see it as we stitch today. Oh, I had a messy start. Nope, it's not catching. Let's try a different stitch. I actually do practice this, but some days the machine, it doesn't like me as much. That's all right. I'm going to go back to the screen and I'm going to go back to 7. Oh, that looks great. I'm going to make it a little wider. A longer. Here we go. Yeah. I think I got thread. Let's just practice, shall we? I think my bobbin thread got caught. No, it's perfectly happy. It's just me. See, weird things happen to everybody all the time. All the time. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, tech department. They're going to be mad. There we go. So the machine does not like to sew on air. So those first couple of stitches didn't catch on anything. So it made it a little unhappy. Now I've got it. I just need a little practice. Okay, I'm going to pick a different stitch. That one's good. Show you what this looks like in a moment. Woo, it's so much fun. So easy now that I got it set up right. Okay, let me show you what this looks like. Sorry about my hand in front there. Okay, I'm going to bring this over in front. So do you see what happened here? Right, it caught both edges of the fabric and then made some little stitches in the middle. Kind of looks like knitting or crochet, you know, with very fine threads. And then here's the second pattern, much more of a zigzag pattern. This one is much more straight across, and this was 725. This was more like of a side-to-side action. Isn't that so cool? So you can imagine that we used this technique to put the two ribbons together, but you could also add a band to the bottom of a skirt hem or pant hem, or you could put lengths of fabric together to make a pillow or another home deck item, or you could add this to the bottom of a drape if you could find a fabric that could support a thread that would support the weight of the fabric. You could use this in so many places. I see it in a lot of bag detail, wallet details, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's so funny how sometimes, yeah, you do a live demo and things go a little bit weird. But yeah, that's how you do Spanish hemstitch with the number 47 attachment. Usually I make it look a lot easier, but today I just felt like making it look tough for you guys. If you want more information on beautiful heirloom sewing that we did earlier, the hem stitching or Spanish hemstitch, there is a Pinterest page that I made already. The link for it will be going out at 10 after 4 today. And there's lots of free projects in there, not just technique articles, but free projects, and also a really in-depth article on hem stitching by Nina McVeigh. She shows you all the stuff we talked about today, the machine settings, the needles that you should choose, the foot selections, fabric choices, thread choices, starching, not starching, using a stabilizer. Everything we covered today and more is in that article, so check that out. And of course, we also have a free ebook on heirloom sewing, so you might want to check that out as well. We have that all on our Pinterest page, so that'll be coming out at 10 after 4 today. Also, be sure to share it with your friends. I'm sure they'd be interested. You don't need a Bernina machine to do heirloom stitching or hem stitching. It sure helps, I think. But you might want to share that with your friends and let them see this video or link them to the Pinterest page. That would be great. I really appreciate you spending time with us today to learn about old techniques made modern. And I hope you'll try something new this week. And I'll look forward to sharing again with you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.